So, hi everybody. Lauren, I'm not sure if that's my prompt. Am I good to go?
Yes, you may start speaking. We're recording now.
Okay, terrific. Thanks so much. Hi everybody. My name is Karen Monroe. I am past president now of ACRL. I've just ended my term at the end of June. So I'm very happy to be talking to you all today from my home in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I'm situated on the current unceded lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam people. So this is the 2020 Leader Orientation for sections for ACRL. Before we kick things off, I wanted to just thank everybody for being here, for putting your hand up for leadership in ACRL. ACRL is a member organization. It's a member-driven organization. We could not do what we do without your strong participation. So thank you so much for being a leader within ACRL, and I'm looking forward to working with you. So maybe next slide, which I think is actually or am I doing slides, Lauren? Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much, Lauren. So next slide is, we can skip to the next one as well, I think now. Excellent. Okay, terrific. So I think we have an hour today, and I just wanted to let you know what we're expecting and hoping to accomplish during our time. We'd like to give everybody a better understanding of ACRL as an association and a division of ALA. I'm sure everyone is aware that ACRL is a part of the larger association, ALA, but what does that relationship really look like? Give you a better understanding of how we work together as associations. We'd like you to come away from today with a good understanding of what the expectations are for you as a member of the leadership class of ACRL for the year. And also give you a sense of how to get things done so that you go into your year knowing a little more about how to get done what you have on your agenda, what you would like to see happen during your year. So some of this will be nitty-gritty stuff. It will be nuts and bolts. But before we get into that, I also just wanted to say, having just completed my year as president and my prior to that year as vice president, which is also a very busy year, I just want to say that it's been a really rewarding experience working with ACRL. Genuinely, I can say that. It's been an interesting couple of years, a challenging couple of years in some ways, as we're all aware. It's been a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty in our own institutions as well as in the larger world. But it has been absolutely fantastic working with the staff and the membership of ACRL. I really want to just shine a light on the terrific work that's happening at all levels of ACRL. It is a terrific organization full of excellent folks to work with. So I hope that will be your experience as well. I'm sure it has been for many of you already, or you wouldn't be here in the room. You wouldn't have moved on to a leadership role. So again, thank you. And I'm looking forward to this hour and to working with you. So next slide, please. Terrific. Oh, we're slightly off, I think. So I'm going to just hang on. Could you just go back one slide for me, Lauren? I think. Thank you. I'm going to hang on the one that says leadership class at the top. That's where I want to be for just another second. Thank you. Perfect. That's great. So just a little bit of nuts and bolts of how things work for leadership group. So the work that you do obviously happens all through the year. The leadership team, what we call the leadership team, which is the member leader group, sections, interest groups, committees, discussion groups, typically meet twice a year at Leadership Council at ALA conference. Usually it's held at ALA Midwinter and at the annual conference. So obviously that's not the case at the moment. In January of this past year, 2020, we held our first virtual Leadership Council meeting. You might be doing the month math in your head and realize we didn't actually do that because of COVID. We did it because we were anticipating changes to how the association works and to the Midwinter meeting in particular. So we had a virtual Leadership Council meeting that I think was extremely popular and successful. And then we also held a face-to-face Leadership Council networking breakfast in Philadelphia. So this year, because of the cancellation of ALA, of annual conference, we're holding virtual Leadership Council and membership meeting later this summer. So you can watch for the announcements about that. It will come out on the listserv, and staff will say more about that later in the session. So you may already be familiar with the ACRL strategic plan, which is called the Plan for Excellence. That is sort of the driving goal of the leadership group, that we are working towards the priorities in the plan. We publish an annual report in the December issue of CNRL News. And that's where at the end of the year, we will be highlighting the accomplishments that you are working on and that your groups are working on. So we want everybody to hit this year feeling engaged, feeling like they belong in this association, that you feel healthy and happy and ready to go, and that you are in a good place to help folks that you're working with feel the same way. So that's a good starting place maybe to get into some more details here. So let's take a look and go ahead one more slide at the structure of ACRL. Just a reminder, or maybe some new information for some folks. So you see in front of you a lovely diagram of the leadership structure of ACRL. So what you see is that there's the ACRL Board of Directors, which has general oversight and direction of the affairs of the association. So the board conducts all of the business that pertains to the association, and it has the authority to make decisions and speak on behalf of the association. So that is sort of the structure of the board. That includes the president roles, the board of directors. Your liaisons to the board are members of the board, obviously, as well as the chair of budget and finance, and the executive director, who we'll speak to in just a little bit. And then you'll see we have division level committees. These are committees that are charged by the board, generally for some specific task, or to advise the board on a specific issue, or to move us toward a specific goal. So those appointments can come up really at any point during the year. And then the communities of practice. You may have heard COPA being used as a term around ACRL. The Communities of Practice Assembly is what that stands for, and that encompasses the sections, the interest groups, and the discussion groups. So you're all here at the moment because of your involvement in sections, and that is actually how I came up through ACRL as well, as through section work. So this is where folks often tend to engage with ACRL in their positions. This is sort of specialized membership roles in engagement opportunities. So communities of practice are approved by the board. They have quite a lot of autonomy. You may be aware within sections, you have quite a lot of autonomy to determine your own strategic goals and how you want to accomplish them. And then your section vice chairs are responsible for appointing the member volunteers who are going to serve on your section committees. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, great. Thank you. So I mentioned the ACRL strategic plan, the plan for excellence, a minute ago. So this is a lovely diagram of the strategic plan, showing sort of its main areas of focus. And you can see from looking at that ACRL has 4 high-level strategic goals, and that's been the case for some time, so you might be familiar with those already. Those are the value of academic libraries, student learning and information literacy, research and the scholarly environment, and what we call new roles and changing landscapes. We also have, in the last couple of years, created a core commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. So about this here, I wanted to say, because we are the Higher Education Association for Academic Librarians, we lead academic and research libraries in advancing learning and transforming scholarship through our focus on these areas. We have specific objectives that we carefully monitor and measure to see if we're doing what we set out to do. So if you haven't already done so, I really encourage you to just quickly Google the ACRL Plan for Excellence and take a look at it with your leadership team in your section. Just get a little familiar with what those goals are and what kinds of measures we're using. You, I think, have the URL for the Plan for Excellence. It's in the handout that was sent along with this presentation invitation. So you can take a look at it and get a sense of, oh, and I think Allison just popped it in the chat. Thank you, Allison. You can get a sense of the core purpose of ACRL that we're all working towards together. We also obviously have a lot going on within ACRL apart from the strategic work. As you know from your work in your own institution, there's lots of what we call in ACRL enabling programs and services, which is the operational work that the association does day to day, week to week, to keep things rolling. So budget and finance, professional development opportunities, publications, membership, other other work like that, that falls under what we would call enabling programs and services in ACRL. We work with committees and communities of practice to make sure that what we're supporting and what we're working on is responsive to what people are needing in the profession. So if you, as you are doing your work, develop ideas for webinars or discussion forums or publications or other things that you think are really important, arising, critical at this moment, we're certainly seeing a lot of change in the profession right now. We certainly, your board liaison is a terrific person to talk to about that. We'd love to hear sort of what's arising in your field, in your area, that you think is really important for people doing that work. We'll talk a little bit more a little later, I think, in this session about how you can work with the board of directors and with your board liaison and things like that. Okay, so next slide, please. Thank you. So I mentioned a minute ago the core commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. This was a statement that the board crafted together in an in-person retreat, I think now 2 years ago, and then ensured that it was written into the strategic plan so that it would permeate the work of the entire association and all of our units. What it says is that we're dedicated to creating diverse, inclusive, and equitable communities in ACRL and in our professions in academic and research libraries. So we approved that in fall of 2018. It's relatively new relative to the rest of the plan. You can find a link to the full text of the core commitment. If you can't read that on the screen there, it's a little bit light. In again, I think the handout that came with the invitation for today. So I will just reiterate, because this is very important to our work. It has been for years now. Obviously, this is something that's been important to academic librarianship for, I would say, decades now. And this is one way that ACRL is ensuring that this is sort of front and center for our own work in the board, for the work of all of the member leaders and all parts of ACRL. The goal here is to acknowledge and address, I'm going to sort of go with the wording here, historical racial inequities, to challenge oppressive systems within academic libraries, to value different ways of knowing, and to identify and work to eliminate barriers to equitable services, spaces, resources, and scholarship. So some of the ways that we've been working towards this, you can find out a lot more from a fantastic live guide that Allison Payne has created for us, and maybe other staff members have helped with that too. If you are to Google ACRL EDI live guide, you would find a very comprehensive site that will tell you much more about what ACRL is doing in this respect, but just a couple of highlights. I will mention the President's Program. Every year, the ACRL president offers a program usually at annual conference. This year it was virtual. So in 2019, last year, Lauren Presley's President's Program Committee focused on an EDI topic, particularly focusing on why people stay in organizations that make EDI work, that are successful. So what are some strategies for success in creating more equitable workplaces? So that's on the website that I just mentioned, and I think Allison popped it in the chat. Thank you. The 2020 President's Program I'll mention as well was, this was my year. We held that program quite recently. It was virtual, as I mentioned. The title of it was Shifting the Center, Transforming Academic Libraries Through Generous Accountability, which is I thought was a fascinating topic. The committee, I think, did a great job. And our speaker, Mackenzie Mack, I think did an absolutely knock it out of the park job of speaking to that challenging topic of how we can hold ourselves accountable in ways that are generous and that move us forward. So we held that virtually this year. It is available online. You can find it on YouTube. ACRL has links to it on their website as well. I strongly encourage you to watch Mackenzie's presentation if you haven't. I think they did a fantastic job. In addition, we've had EDI programs held at midwinter and in other contexts. And so the current ACRL president, who is John Cawthorn, he is working with his planning committee to prepare a president's program on an EDI topic for the 2021 conference, which we hope will be in Chicago. So next slide, thank you. Another highlight of EDI work in ACRL is the ACRL Diversity Alliance. So if you're not familiar with the Diversity Alliance, the goal of this alliance of universities is to increase the hiring pipeline of qualified and talented individuals from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. This is a project, a piece of work that has been around now for several years. It was started in 2017. It's a network of member institutions. Each institution commits to at least a 2-year diversity residency position at their library. There are currently over 35 institutional members of the Diversity Alliance, and ACRL is expecting to grow that program and offer more benefits and provide more resources for residents and institutions. And next slide, please. And then something else that we are doing in this respect, before I pass the speaking stick to Kara MALENFANT, who is our interim executive director. We have been working for a couple of years now on appointments, how appointments are made in ACRL. So John Cawthorn, I mentioned, is the current president of ACRL. He's been working with his appointments committee to complete this year's division level committee appointments. And there are a lot of appointments, I could say from experience, having served in the vice president role. There are hundreds of appointments to be made. Sections are also completing your appointments, I think, still at this point. Interest and discussion groups have a separate process for their appointments, for their convener appointments. We will talk a little bit more about the process overall in this presentation shortly, but at the start, I just wanted to mention in connection to EDI that we've been working on making this more inclusive. So we've updated our marketing to make it more welcoming on the volunteer form on the webpage, in our social media, to try to make, to ensure that we get the widest possible number and range of volunteers for these positions. We also instituted in the last year or so some optional demographic questions for folks who do want to volunteer. So if you have filled out a volunteer form, you may have seen those questions asking you about racial, ethnic, and gender demographies. They're entirely optional, but that data does help us to understand how we're doing in terms of our benchmark. Up to this point, we haven't known specifically, how our leadership group, our member leader group within ACRL is made up, and whether it's representative of the profession or of our institutions or of our communities. So starting to gather that demographic information will help us to understand where we might need to do better in making these appointments. So we're going to continue that process and continue to report out on it each year. So holding ourselves accountable for helping to change the demographics within the association leadership. Those are a few of the things that we've been working on in ACRL in the last year or two, particularly around EDI, which is an area that I think I feel quite strongly about, and that I think a lot of our members feel very strongly about as well. I have more to say, but I am going to transition at this point and hand things over to Kara MALENFANT, who is our interim executive director. So thank you very much. Over to you, Kara.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, I am the interim executive director. I have been a staff member for about 15 years already at ACRL, and I should point out to you that the position posting job ad for the permanent executive director should go out later this summer. So keep your eyes peeled. Maybe one of you would want to be the next ACRL executive director. I just want to say thank you very much for taking on this leadership role with your section, especially during these really unprecedented times. It means a lot to know that you care so much about the association and about the profession that you're willing to put in the time and effort to help make the association strong and move the profession forward. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about kind of how ACRL works with ALA and a kind of high-level overview of some key ACRL policies that you should be aware of. So the structure of ACRL as codified in the operating agreement is really, it's unique among American associations. ALA is one association, one legal entity with indivisible assets and a single set of uniform administrative, financial, and personnel policies and procedures. It is also the home to divisions like ACRL, which have their own strategic plans, separate boards of directors elected by division members, their own executive directors and staff, and responsibility for generating revenue to support division staff and carry out their programs. ACRL was the first division of ALA in 1940. It's the largest, and we have many different member groups, as Karen already outlined, to meet your needs, as well as 44 separately incorporated chapters that are geographic. But again, in the eyes of the IRS, ALA is a 501c3, one legal entity, which means that we're charitable, educational nonprofit organization for the public benefit. We're not categorized the way a professional association would be. So what does this mean for you and your role in ACRL? Well, this status of being a 501c3 puts limits on the amount of lobbying and political activity. So what this means is there can't be political speech. And what that means is discussions supporting or opposing candidates. Since 2020 is a federal election year, that's going to matter a lot. So we can't have people in ALA Connect or on email lists or in any public forum where you're officially doing something on behalf of ACRL saying vote this way or vote that way, or don't support this candidate or do support this candidate. It also means we can't organize boycotts. We can't engage in what would be called restraint of trade, and we can't make defamatory remarks about other people. And I know that sometimes confusion arises and people say, but wait, what about free speech? I just want to be clear, this is a tax issue. This is an IRS issue. This could jeopardize ALA's and ACRL and your section's legal standing. And we don't want to be the ones to cause that kind of a harm to ALA. It has a tax exempt organization. So if you're at all in doubt about what you can say or you can't say, go ahead and ask. We're happy to help you sort it through. Contact me directly. So while we can't take positions on candidates, we can support issues. So we can say things like, the White House has proposed eliminating IMLS. We encourage all of you to support funding for libraries, right? Those are the kinds of things we can say. And in fact, we did say that. And in fact, you all stepped up. And because of your tireless advocacy, the fiscal year 20 IMLS budget had $10 million more than it had the previous year. But, you know, we're going to have to keep kind of fighting these challenges on issues we care about. And there are many that you care about, whether it's broadband access or funding for libraries, whatever the topic. There are many issues we can take stands on and speak out about. We just can't endorse candidates. And I'm sure you've seen recently some new legislation came in that would help libraries in terms of COVID-19 pandemic relief funding. And so again, that's an issue where we encourage you to go to the ALA Action Center, you know, contact your member of Congress, ask them to support that bill. We expect we're going to have to keep doing more and more of that over the years, and you can expect to hear more from ALA and ACRL. We encourage you to be active politically in that way. All right, let's talk for just a second about the financial relationship between ALA and ACRL. As I said earlier, per the operating agreement, the ACRL budget must be self-sustaining. Divisions must generate their own revenue to cover their staff and to cover their costs of delivering their programs, their services, awards, whatever it is we're going to do. So we don't get direct support from ALA. It's not like a library that gets a budget from its university. In fact, ACRL must generate all of our own revenue. And we do that by membership dues, by registration for events, whether it's webinars or in-person or workshops. We sell books and publications, and we have advertising revenue. And all of those things together cover our expenses, all of the programs we create and offer, and all of the staff salaries and benefits. Additionally, divisions pay ALA overhead through an indirect cost rate. So anything not dues related, we pay 26.4% for this year. So for every dollar of your conference registration for the ACRL conference, just as an example, 26.4 cents goes to ALA, and it covers things like IT, legal support, HR, finance, the library. We have our own library. And also it covers important mission work that ALA does for the good of the entire profession, like the Office of Diversity and Literacy Outreach, Intellectual Freedom, and so on and so forth. But I just want you to know that ALA is reviewing its organizational effectiveness, and that the operating agreement may well be renegotiated. In fact, very recently, the ALA Executive Board put forth a call for volunteers, and I believe they've talked about appointments, but I haven't seen the official notice about a group to really take a look at that operating agreement. And so that matters a lot to how ACRL can work as a division, and it'll have consequences for sections as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on it as staff. The board will be keeping an eye on it. The ACRL Budget and Finance Committee is going to be taking a look, and we'll look for opportunities to engage, opportunities to give input. Let me go next to talk a little bit about some current streams of change happening at ALA. So as some of you know and have heard, ALA is undergoing a lot of change right now. And of course, the first one that is happening for everyone across all kinds of industries and across society at large is the impact of the pandemic. So for ALA, this meant canceling the face-to-face portion of the ALA annual conference, going virtual only. For ACRL, this meant canceling the Rare Books and Manuscripts Section Conference, RBMS, our information literacy immersion program, our traveling roadshow workshops, and we quickly pivoted and took the content that couldn't be part of the ALA virtual conference. They couldn't have thousands of sessions, it was just too much. So they took a few from each group and they said, you can do what you'd like with the rest. And we created a free online event called ACRL Together Wherever. And the program Karen mentioned with Mackenzie Mack on generous accountability was our keynoter for that. So I would encourage you to take a look at our website. You can find the recordings for all of those ACRL Together Wherever sessions online, and they were just phenomenal. So one big impact of the pandemic was canceling all those in-person events, which also meant a decrease in revenue because we rely on registration dues. We also see decreases in membership. Not everyone can afford to maintain membership in ALA right now, so we see that revenue decreasing as well. And we see a decline in sales of our publications. Not as many people are buying our books right now. People's pocketbooks are tight, we understand that. All of that means that the ACRL budget and the ALA budget are really tight right now. And so what that means for us as staff is that we'll be taking 28 unpaid furlough days between this August and next year August. So I would ask you to be kind and compassionate. And you know, we are feeling the effects of this on a personal level the same way that all of you are. I know many of you have these same kinds of issues going on at your institutions. So please, you know, work with us, but also just be patient and give us a little bit of extra heads up if you need something. We'll be giving you heads up before we're out of the office. We're going to have a week in August, a week in October, a week in December, and then the following year, a week in March, a week in June, a week in August. So we'll be working as if those were, you know, we're going to be unavailable for the whole week. We'll give people heads up, lots of notice, but just understand that our time won't be as available and we may not be able to do everything we've done, which is going to pain us because we want to do everything we can for you. All right, so that's pandemic impact. The others won't take that long, I promise. The ALA reorganization. Forward Together there's 2 new working groups that are carrying out the work of what was called SCOE, the Steering Committee on Organizational Effectiveness. So really looking at how ALA structure works, and working with council to really reimagine how ALA is structured. So there are 2 working groups that have just been charged to carry out Forward Together and to really do the fiscal analysis for Forward Together. Again, things we'll want to track carefully, things we'll want to understand about how the organization is structured. And then you've all probably heard that some divisions within ALA are already changing and already merging. So 3 existing division members all voted and approved a bylaws change, and council's on board with it too. So Alex, Lita, and Lama are going to be uniting to form a new division called CORE. ASCLA, the Association of Specialized Government and Cooperative Library Agencies, is going to be dissolving effective September 1. And RUSA is in the process of creating a task force that's going to investigate the future of RUSA and make recommendations by next June. So those are some big things that are happening. In terms of the COVID-19 survey, that's a big new thing that happened over this spring, and I hope you've seen those results. There was an early spring version and then a later one, started off by PLA and then came together lots of other units, including ACRL and outside partners. And this is really going to help all of us understand what's happening out there. What is the impact of the crisis on libraries, the library community, programs, services, and finances? And that's going to drive a lot of what we do in the coming year. You can find the report online. The ALA headquarter building move. ALA sold its headquarters building on 50 and 40 East Huron, and we're just completing our move to rented office space about a mile south, right downtown in Chicago. And as any of you who've undertaken that kind of a major renovation or space planning know, it takes a lot of time and effort. So you've noticed our website has been down. We had to move servers and move terabytes of information, and there were some challenges involved with that. So things have been up and down, and we know that this has affected the WordPress sites as well. And I can assure you, we are in touch with our IT daily about this, and they're working very actively to get those blogs up, testing them one by one. So that's ongoing. The operating agreement working group, I mentioned that there's this operating agreement that describes how divisions and other units relate to the larger ALA, and that's undergoing some reconsideration. This is going to have potentially some pretty big impact on ACRL because unique among divisions, we have a very strong publishing unit. So we have a monthly news magazine, 2 scholarly journals, and we have a dozen monograph titles or more that we publish each year. And then we also have Choice, which is a unit of ACRL based in Middletown, Connecticut, publishing reviews of academic monographs and databases. So again, this is a group we're going to be looking at closely. And then lastly, for now, as of today, Midwinter 21 in Indianapolis is still on the books to be held. We'll see if that holds true or not. But if it does go forward in person, it will be the last regular ALA Midwinter meeting. Starting in 2022, the renamed event will be more content focused with very few business meetings. So not space set aside for boards, for sections, or for committees. So again, the ACRL board is going to stay apprised and share more information as we learn. A word about external communications. So as an ACRL leader, you might be asked to comment, to send a letter of support. You might want your membership group to take a stance on a particular issue. But as Karen said earlier, only the board can speak for ACRL. For example, if you get a call from a reporter, you can comment as an individual, but not if you use your ACRL title. The board does respond promptly to requests from units to take action. So in 2019, RBMS, the Rare Books and Manuscript section, asked ACRL to join 8 other organizations, institutions, and Native American communities to endorse the protocols for Native American archival materials. The board was happy to review that request and voted, and yes, ACRL's name is on that. So bring your request to the board anytime, year-round. Work with your staff liaison, work with your board liaison. The board is happy to take those kinds of requests under consideration. We know that informal communication is important with ACRL's work in the higher education community. And this happens on a lot of different levels through the work of individuals, sections, interest groups, through ACRL officers, staff, and also through the External Liaisons Committee, formerly the Liaison Coordinating Committee. We have a liaison assembly through the External Liaisons Committee of all ACRL members who are working with other organizations. And we have some talking points we've developed that you or your ACRL liaisons might want to use when you're meeting with other groups. So if you have issues that you think would be of interest for these kinds of liaisons, we welcome you to create some talking points and we'd be happy to distribute them. A few more pertinent policies. If you're going to be developing a questionnaire or a survey, we know that SurveyMonkey makes it super easy to do it yourself, and some of you have other tools. We ask that you don't send surveys out beyond your own member group without first checking in with the ACRL office. So we want to just give them a quick once-over, a quick review, just to avoid survey fatigue, avoid duplication. Maybe we know of a survey on the same topic that's about to go out. And again, we want to help ensure the highest quality of survey. But once your survey's been given a once-over and is approved, then staff can help you determine the best way to get it out to the right group of members. Another important policy is that ACRL and ALA have the right of first refusal on the work you do within your membership group. So as I said, ACRL is a publisher and an online learning provider, and we know you have creative ideas. We really want ACRL to be the first to be able to consider how to publish your unit's work or how we can offer a webinar on this topic. So when you volunteer for ACRL, you're serving on behalf of the entire profession, and you can use our networks and our connections to get your work out to the widest audience possible. Please feel free to check with ACRL's content strategist, Erin Nevius, to propose a topic, or ask your staff liaison and they'll help connect you. So to some, ACRL can seem like a complex organization. We do have a lot of committees and communities of practice all working together for ACRL's core purpose and key goals. As an ACRL leader, you have a key role in connecting the members of your community with this big picture of ACRL and helping them to feel part of this wonderful and diverse community. So we encourage you to think about how you're going to communicate with your group and being that conduit to ensure that your group members aren't spinning their wheels, or that you're not duplicating the effort of another unit. We have a lot of different tools to help you communicate, and you're going to hear more about those later. So from time to time, you'll have to work with the ACRL board, and you might need to know how to do that. What does that look like? How do you work with the board? So I already mentioned as an example the protocols for Native American materials. Here are a few more examples. The board approves new awards, changes to award criteria. The board approves standards or guidelines, which are developed by committees, task forces, and communities of practice. The board also approves changes to division level committee charges and decides whether a section, an industry group, or a discussion group can either be created, can be renewed, or can dissolve. So if you want the board to take an official action like that, then you fill out a board of directors action form, and we'll have links to that. And every unit has a staff liaison. So every division level committee, every section, you have a board liaison. These folks are your team. If you don't know what to do. Don't spend a lot of time trying to hunt down an answer. You know, we on staff know how the sausage is made, as does the board. We can make you, we know the process. We know how to get the process done. You guys are the content experts. So rely on us and use us to help get your work done quickly. We will send around deadlines via the listserv saying, you know, here are the deadlines for reports, or here are the deadlines for getting your action requests in. And you don't have to wait for in-person meetings at midwinter or annual. The board can take up actions any time of the year that you think it's necessary, but we will send out periodic reminders when they have regularly scheduled meetings. All right, so before you can communicate to your team and be that conduit between ACRL down to all the members of your section, you need to know who's on it. So take a look at the directory of leadership. This is connected on the ACRL website, and this has current up-to-date contact information for members of your group. It's connected directly to the ALA member ID. So as soon as people make an update in their member record in the ALA database, within 24 hours, it goes and it refreshes here. Specific contact information is only going to be visible to ACRL members once they've logged in to protect your privacy. So you'll need to log in to see the full roster, and again, it's dynamically linked. So the membership year begins July 1st. If you haven't already, now is an awesome time to look at the rosters, reach out to your colleagues, and introduce yourself. And lastly, as Karen mentioned, you're going to be invited soon to the ACRL Virtual Leadership Council and membership meeting. We use this time to get input, develop the plan for excellence. That's how we did it. That's how we added the 4th goal based on discussions at Leadership Council. Sometimes we hear from presenters or share initial thinking of the board on any new initiatives or governance to get some feedback. And we let you know about ALA changes and initiatives. We've recently had some speakers talk in June 2019 about how leaders can strengthen their roles as allies in seeking greater racial equity, and in January 2019 on planning for diversity and inclusion. So this Leadership Council that's going to be coming up later this summer is going to be about a chance to continue that work towards racial equity. And we're in conversations with a couple of facilitators to help us decide how that's going to be structured, so we don't have a date nailed down just yet. But we will be sending that around as soon as we do and giving you plenty of advance notice. So those are some of the kind of high level things that you might need to know about ACRL. And again, we'll have links to all of those in the handout. But I'm going to transition over to my colleague, Mary Jane, to tell you a little bit more about what you need to know to be effective.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Kara. I'm Mary Jane Petrowski, and during the next segment, I'll review some important deadlines as well as budgets and professional development opportunities. You'll be glad to know, as Kara said, that ACRL staff will give you abundant notice of all upcoming dates and deadlines via the Communities of Practice Assembly discussion list. We've subscribed all the new incoming section leaders to this list. If you are coming in as a new section chair or vice chair, you will be able to access the ALA community for your executive committee on July 1st, which is past, and your access to your ALA Connect communities is linked to your appointment term. So we always extend access by a few weeks in July so that you can post minutes and finish up any work you need to do. As has been said previously, ALA has an open meeting policy, and this applies to your virtual meetings. So if you plan to hold a virtual meeting, we ask that you give 10 days notice in ALA Connect and then post the agenda and meeting highlights, and also send along to your staff liaison. So we really suggest that you prepare meeting highlights and summaries and just focus on recording key actions, decisions that were made, any next steps, so that it's clear who's going to do what by when. The outgoing section chair is responsible for completing the Plan for Excellence implementation report, and these are due on July 17th. This report collects information on everything your section has done to advance the 4 goal areas in the strategic plan, and the board uses these reports to assess our collective progress on the ACRL Plan for Excellence. And we'll be reading them in preparation for their strategic planning meeting in the fall. Now, a few quick words about funding and reimbursement. Sections receive funding allocation notifications in early October. These are based on section membership numbers at the end of the fiscal year. Just a reminder that unused funds are not carried over to the next fiscal year. So we'll be asking you to send all reimbursement requests into us by August 15th. Section chairs approve requests for funding that are submitted by committee members before sending them along to ACRL. We want to make sure that you've approved the request. Now, the ACRL annual budget does include some funds for strategic initiatives. If you have an idea for an initiative that requires funding above and beyond your basic services budget, please get in touch with your board and staff liaisons, and we can help shepherd your request. Switching gears now from funding to fundraising. Some of you might remember that the board approved a fundraising goal for the 2021 ACRL conference scholarships of $60,000, and 12 sections have already donated toward a named section scholarship. Lori Getch, our campaign chair, has reached out to all of this year's section leaders to encourage your participation in the 2021 campaign. So again, if this is the first time you're hearing about this, if your section wishes to raise or donate funds for a named scholarship, the goal is $740, and you can fund more than one scholarship. So if you've already donated your FY20 basic services budget funds, you can also donate some from your FY21 budget by December. Now, on behalf of our 14 award committees, I'd like to flag the first Friday in December as our big awards deadline. And the awards committees would really appreciate your nominations because as leaders in the association, you're uniquely positioned to identify colleagues who deserve recognition. We'll be in touch closer to the deadline for nominations, but please put this on your to-do list and encourage your committee members to participate. Your section membership committee chairs are de facto members of the ACRL section membership committee, and I am the staff liaison to that group. So please let your committee chairs know that they will be representing your section on this division level committee. So for this committee, each month we upload your most recent membership statistics and lists. And those are your new members, reinstated, renewing, and drop members. And these reports are generally available by the second or third week of the month. And we encourage section representatives to share these reports with their respective executive committees and to reach out and welcome the new and reinstated members. We'll also be reaching out to your section membership committees to solicit volunteers to represent your section in Seattle at the ACRL Conference First Time Attendee Orientation. And this is really a program for ACRL members to mix and mingle and learn more about getting involved with your section. ACRL offers several types of online learning. First, we have our e-learning offerings. These focus on practical topics and issues. They're live webcasts and or multi-week online courses. Proposals are reviewed and approved by the ACRL staff. And every year we post a call for proposals for topics, so please contact the ACRL Manager of Professional Development, Margot Conahan, if you have an idea. We also encourage your unit to submit a proposal for an e-learning webcast or course. We'll handle the scheduling and logistics for these events. More importantly, we encourage ACRL sections to develop content for online discussion forums, which are less formal sessions. than the e-learning events, and they're free. To ensure your online education is visible to a broader audience, we just ask that you complete a simple form providing details about the forum. We do offer Zoom to host the larger virtual forums. For these types of events, we ask you to handle the logistics and the content, and ACRL staff will work with you to publicize it. All discussion forums are archived and available to members on the website. So just submit a request in the ACRL virtual meeting libcal. Finally, we offer, and this will be of interest, I think, it's a free resource. We offer sponsored ACRL Choice webinars on topics such as digital publishing, research trends, and open access. Next, we're going to take a look at information about programs, budgets, and web resources. So this slide shows the FY20 basic services budget, and you can see they range quite a bit. They're based on section membership as of August 31st. Each section receives $1,000 as a base, and then an additional 75 cents for each member over 400. Sections have used these basic services funds to sponsor emerging leaders, to support liaison activities, member engagement initiatives, social events, ACRL conference scholarships, and to carry out the work of the section. If you need additional support for a project or initiative, there are two avenues to consider, including a special request to the board or fundraising. Several of our sections have a long history of successful fundraising, and staff can check the donor's history of giving so that you can acknowledge past gifts before you approach a corporate donor. So Karen spoke earlier about this year's appointments, and what I'd like to do is just go over and go into some detail of the general appointments process. Section vice chairs are responsible for making their section, committee, and discussion group appointments. And they make these appointments during the year so these appointments will be in effect the year that they serve as section chair. Appointment terms follow the membership year, which runs from July 1 through June 30th annually. And the official call for the 2021-2022 committee volunteers will go out this December, and the volunteer deadline will be February 15th of 2021. We will post the call for volunteers on ACRL Insider, ACRL marketing channels. The membership committee hosts a webcast on how to apply and to encourage people to apply. So we suggest that you be on the lookout for opportunities to involve more people and perhaps go beyond the usual suspects, because the more volunteers in the database, the more people the vice chair will have to create strong matches for committee appointments. So if any non-members attend your committee's virtual meetings this summer, let them know they should volunteer through the online system. We ask volunteers to submit the online form to demonstrate their commitment and ensure they're considered. And please note that this volunteer form is only available to current section members, because all appointees must be ACRL members and section members throughout the duration of their committee appointment. Every section is assigned a board liaison who serves as a point of contact for questions and advice based on the board members' knowledge of ACRL's mission, policies and procedures, and strategic goals. So these liaisons are assigned by the incoming president, and they are in process. So check your section's executive committee roster later this month to see who your board liaison is. So Your Communities of Practice team includes ACRL Senior Program Officer Megan Griffin, who serves as the main staff liaison to sections. She will be back in September, and I will be serving in that role through the end of August. ACRL Program Coordinator Lauren Carlton serves as the staff liaison to interest groups, discussion groups, and chapters, and is also one of our resident ACRL virtual meeting experts. They are both here to support you and your unit, so please don't hesitate to contact them with questions throughout the year. We use these several channels for communicating information and announcements, as well as gathering feedback on important association business. And we encourage you to use them to post questions, share ideas, and so forth. While face-to-face, most meetings will be virtual this year. The Leadership Council, the Leadership Council Welcome Reception, as well as meetings you schedule for ACRL conferences. We encourage chairs to attend the Leadership Council or send a representative so that leaders can have the opportunity to collaborate with each other. Attendance at these meetings is not required, but you do need to determine how your group will keep up with the broader work of ACRL and ALA if you cannot attend. The board really values section input, so when possible, we will send table activities to units not attending the face-to-face meeting and ask you to participate asynchronously and provide feedback. A bit more on ACRL on email communication. While ALA and ACRL have relied on Simple List, ACRL will be slowly phasing these out in the coming year and relying more on ALA Connect, which does have features much like the email list. We will give you plenty of notice and assist with the transition. But currently we have the ACRL Leads discussion list. Current and past ACRL leaders are automatically subscribed. We have the Communities of Practice discussion list, which includes the current section and interest group leaders who are automatically subscribed. We also have social media, so check out the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Elois is going to go into more detail about virtual meetings in just a moment. But due to increasing demand for virtual meeting space from our 300+ member groups, we are encouraging member leaders to first consider utilizing their own alternative options for smaller committee meetings lasting an hour or less. If you do not have access and need to use ACRL's virtual meeting space, please consult the virtual meeting calendar. And of course, ALA Connect is the web platform where your committees can work and post, and where we will post board agendas, documents, and minutes. As I just mentioned, the ALA Connect is where your committee work takes place. Committees can participate in online discussion boards and share documents. It's also a great place to store documents for future committee members. Documents that you will want to keep in your committee's ALA Connect space include your agendas, minutes, reports, or important updates. Access, again, to your ALA Connect space is linked to your ALA login, so you will need to be a current member to contribute to your committee work in Connect. Other features such as polling, collaborative workspaces, and an email discussion list function within the committee space are expected to be available in the coming year. As new features roll out, we will keep you updated. Quickly, I'll just say we're pleased to offer LibGuides as a free service to our membership units, thanks to the generous support of SpringShare. This includes LibGuides, LibCal, and LibAnswers. These don't replace Connect, but they're a great tool for publishing toolkits, FAQs, and other content resources. And then finally, each year, sections have an opportunity to tell the board about all the accomplishments by submitting a Plan for Excellence implementation report. The online report is a way for us to track and monitor progress toward the plan, goals, and objectives. So this report on your group's activities is an essential document for a strategic-minded association. The deadline, again, to submit is in mid-July each year, just after annual conference. As leaders, you will get details on completing the reports in May each year. So you might want to think about how to best track your section activities throughout the year so that you'll be in great shape to submit your report. And now I will quickly pass things over to Elois, who will talk to you more about virtual meetings.
Oh, thanks, Mary Jane. Elois is actually out this afternoon, so I will cover for her. I'm ACRL Program Manager for Strategic Initiatives. My name is Allison Payne. I'd like to introduce you to Elois, though, because she is an important part of our team. She works with meetings, and she also works closely with the Board of Directors. Okay, so next slide, thank you. Annual conference programs is just one way to get involved with professional development. We encourage you and your section to consider an annual conference program next year in 2021. The ACRL Professional Development Committee oversees the annual conference program process for ACRL. Although the process is competitive and not every program idea can be accepted, it's still worth putting your idea out there. Currently, ACRL ALA provides about 20 program slots to ACRL at each annual conference. ACRL programs and individuals can submit proposals for annual conference programs. Proposals will be evaluated in the same way using the same selection criteria. Consider making the investment and submit your proposal. 21 program proposals are due late August 2020, and notifications will be sent in October of this year. 2022 proposals will be due in August of next year. We encourage you to use ALA Connect to start discussing your possible program topics for next year. If you have additional questions, please contact the ACRL Professional Development Committee or ACRL Senior Program Officer Megan Griffin later this fall. Okay, so for the upcoming cycle, ALA is planning to meet in Indianapolis for midwinter in January and Chicago for annual conference in June. So as of now, we're still planning to hold the ALA midwinter meeting, but staff will keep you posted if we receive new information from ALA Conference Services. ALA Conference Services is exploring new options for future midwinter meetings, and we will keep you updated as more information becomes available. Please note that there is no requirement for your group to meet in person at ALA midwinter. If you are interested in meeting face-to-face at midwinter, Elois will be in contact with you later this summer or in the early fall. Before I move to the next slide, let me mention that ACRL does not hold business meetings at ACRL conferences. So we will not be holding business meetings in Seattle of next year. ACRL groups are encouraged to hold virtual meetings throughout the year. You are welcome to use ACRL's virtual meeting software, but you are also welcome to use your own Zoom account, as Mary Jane mentioned earlier in the presentation. To comply with the open meeting policy, please make sure to post your agenda 2 weeks before the meeting on ALA Connect. We encourage you to also post your meeting minutes within 2 weeks following your meeting. And here we have some ACRL best practices for virtual meetings to help you facilitate your virtual meetings. And now I will turn the mic over to Karen.
Hi, everybody. Okay, thanks everybody for that. And I know we are really just about at the end of our time here today. So I think we're going to go quite quickly back to next steps. So a few final notes, and then we'll just go quickly to questions. So just a reminder of what I think has already been covered. If you could go to ALA Connect and make sure your profile is up to date. If you're able to add a picture, that's great. It always helps personalize it. Reach out to your committee, to your section, if you haven't already, to introduce yourself and to welcome new members. And please make sure that you are familiar with, I'm sure most people already are, talk to your outgoing chair to familiarize yourself with the work of the group if you're not already. And then please, as has been mentioned, have a look at the Plan for Excellence Implementation Report and start to think about what you and your section will focus on in the year that's coming. And that all said, I would like to open this up. Everyone has, I think, the ability to add to, or to turn on their microphone or to add questions to chat. So please, questions, comments, anybody who's spoken, I'm sure is very ready and willing to answer if you have them. And thanks to those who have been here. I know a few people have had to leave. Thanks to everybody who's saying that they have to go in the chat right now.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, absolutely. Is that Heather speaking?
I'm Heather Smedberg, and I'm the incoming vice chair for RBMS section, Rare Books Manuscript section. And I've always wondered, some of our subcommittees within our section have already been working virtually for the last few years. And I've always kind of wondered how many or what nature of meetings that are sort of ongoing for committees within a section are required to follow the open meeting policy. I mean, we sometimes have working meetings aside from sort of the annual and midwinter meetings. And anyway, I've just always wondered what ACRL's perspective on that is. I think we tend to be more fluid and we don't always follow that open meeting policy for all iterations of types of meetings that we're having within more topic-oriented or task group kind of things through the year. And I've always just wondered whether that's wrong.
Right, more like working group meetings.
Yeah.
Would any staff like to jump in on that question?
I'll give my perspective, but then this is Kara. I'll let Allison chime in as well. So, you know, the letter of the law is any business meeting must be open unless it's dealing with something highly confidential, right? So that might be you're selecting someone to receive an award, or some of our committees sometimes are choosing people to be presenters for one of our licensed workshops. But Heather, I can tell you, you're not alone in not putting every single task force, every single working group, every single, small meeting on the calendar. There's no ALA police checking it, but I think the spirit of the policy is to encourage open governance because members want to know what's going on. So I don't know, Allison, if you've had this question before, or if you have a different perspective on it than I do.
No, I think that captures it well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
But like I said, you're not alone. And I've been a staff liaison to a number of groups where I said, this one really ought to be open. You really ought to post this one. But in the end, no one's gonna police that or monitor it. But I think maybe try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's a new member who wants to understand the work that's happening in RBMS and think, gosh, how would a new member ever know that this is happening if we don't post and make it open?
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. There was also a question in the chat. Julie is asking how ACRL board members are selected or appointed. Does anybody want to speak to that?
So I'm happy to talk about the process, and then Karen can talk about her own personal experience. So there is actually a committee appointed by the board called the Leadership Recruitment and Nomination Committee, LRNC. And that's usually one of the very first committees that a vice president will appoint. And that committee is responsible for the work of finding people who are willing to stand for office, to stand for election. And so they take all sorts of sources of input about who to reach out to, and there's some opportunities for people to openly volunteer and put their names forward. But it's their job to really come up with that slate and have conversations with prospective people who are considering standing for election and talk to them about what it would be like to be a board member or a president. And then it's up to that person to decide whether they want to stand or not. And Karen, maybe you want to talk about what it was like from your side, either appointing the LRNC or being one of those people who was approached.
Sure, very briefly, I will say that I think it's a big job that the LRNC has, creating that slate every year because the commitments are fairly significant at the board level. Board members, directors, at large are 4-year terms, and then the presidential term is a 3-year term. And then the other member of the board that I can think of off the top of my head who's part of the mix is the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, which is an appointed position. And then obviously the executive director as well, which is, again, a slightly different type of position. So yes, I think it's a really, like, the LRNC does really important work in ensuring that there's continuity and that, you know, the ball keeps rolling. We're prepared for the transitions when they come. And I think it makes for a really good mix, having those slightly different terms, and to have the 3 presidents, the vice president and then past, all working together as a small group, which has additional meetings beyond the board meetings that we have throughout the year. So I think that sort of answers the basic question of how those positions come to be, and then they all have slightly different characters as well, I guess I would say.
But who knows, Julie, maybe you, like Karen, will want to stand for the board one day. Could happen, right? Anyone here from a section is welcome to continue your leadership journey within ACRL.
Absolutely.
I see a question from Mackenzie Salisbury. Is there a timeline with important dates for section chairs somewhere? Allison, I think you have more about the background materials, yes?
Oh, I just posted a link to the section resources, which does include a calendar and timeline.
And Julie says that is what she was curious to ask. So that's great. Thumbs up. That's great news. I'm very glad to hear it. We're quite a bit over time now for folks who have other obligations. So I don't want to go too much longer. I'm sure that everyone who's here speaking today would be happy to take questions by email if they occur to you later. So maybe one last call. Any final questions or comments? And if not, then I will say thank you very much again for being here. Hello to folks that I know or have met in the past, and hello to folks that are new faces and names for me. I'm looking forward to working with you all this year. Anything else that anybody wanted to add from the speaker side?
No, I think we'll just add our thanks. Thanks for making time, everyone. And don't hesitate, as Karen has said, to reach out to anyone on staff or your board liaison at any time with any question. No questions too small. We're always happy to help.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lauren and Allison, for running the technology for us today, and